Chapter 108, Sundering. So the closest Shaper camp is only a half-mile away? Greg asked, staring at his phone as if it might contradict him. It doesn't feel like a coincidence, Aaron admitted quietly, his eyes locked on Stephanie. More and more attention was drifting towards her, not just because she was firmly on board with surrendering to the Shapers, but because her aura had begun to shift. When the group argued for running, it brightened when surrender was mentioned. It flared in radiant colors when the discussion leaned towards turning themselves in. Stephanie couldn't see her own aura, but everyone else could, and people didn't trust luck. They didn't trust something they couldn't measure, couldn't understand, couldn't control. Most of their powers were subtle compared to books or movies, but hers was worse than invisible, except under Cup's influence. Why are we actually considering this? Vince shouted. Several people avoided his gaze, not because they agreed with him, but because they didn't know how to repair the fracture forming at the table. I don't like turning ourselves in, Liz admitted after a tense pause, but I don't see another option that keeps us all safe. Vince glared at her. A few others joined him. Liz held their stares without flinching. The only other idea I've heard that is even remotely viable is the sacrifice roulette, Cup said casually. And that means some of us get offered up by lottery. His tone remained light, but the words weren't. They landed like large stones cast downhill among the group. Caleb had first floated the idea. A few people had done quiet math in their heads. 14 of them. Maybe the Shapers would catch 2, 3, possibly 4 at the worst. Those were acceptable odds, if you were thinking selfishly. We're not going to agree, Vince pressed, so we vote, and we honor it. Jake sighed softly. The tracker's almost at the house. It won't be long after that. It won't be long after he arrives that he'll be on our trail. We need to decide. After a few brief glances and no objections, Vince nodded. Show of hands, who's for splitting up? Hands rose, some quickly, some hesitantly, some only after counting others. Vince counted. 7. A tight frown settled over his face. Aaron leaned forward slightly. What if the other 7 of us turn ourselves in? Does that change anything? Shrugs, avoided eye contact. No one spoke. I don't like half of us running while the other half get locked up, Vince said. We choose one path, together. You just want more people for them to chase. Stephanie's voice cracked, but she didn't look away. You're sacrificing someone, and you have no idea who it's going to be. Vince looked down, ashamed, but only briefly. Why shouldn't we give each other the best chance? Not everyone has to die. Stephanie drew in a breath. I'm turning myself in, she said steadily. If that changes anyone's vote, so be it. It's the only thing that feels right. The table erupted again. Voices overlapped. Accusations flew. People stood. Chairs scraped against the floor as they were pushed back. Cup rose quietly. He walked around the table, placed a steady hand on Stephanie's shoulder, and began making deliberate eye contact with the others who had sided with her. Without another word, Cup turned and walked towards the front door with Stephanie. Jake followed, then Aaron, Emily, Nina, Sarah, and Will. Jake glanced back as the rest hesitated. He locked eyes with Liz. There was something in his expression. Regret, maybe? Then he turned away. 6 of them headed towards the Shaper camp on foot. The first block passed in silence. This doesn't feel right, Nina whispered. It's the only thing that feels right, Stephanie answered firmly. Aren't we abandoning them? Nina's voice wavered. What choice do we have? Emily asked, though she sounded unconvinced herself. Nina twisted her hands as she walked. I'll keep an eye on them, Jake offered gently. They'll be okay. Came out more as a question and held all of his own disbelief in the statement. What are they doing? Aaron asked. Jake focused briefly. They're still arguing at the pizza place. Cup and Aaron both muttered curses. They're wasting the head start, Emily said. They're going to get caught, Aaron added grimly. I'm going back, Will said suddenly. He didn't hesitate. He turned and broke into a jog towards the restaurant. Jake watched him go, frowning. Is he coming back? He asked. Cup didn't answer. He gripped Jake's shoulder and gently steered him forward. The others watched Will disappear around the corner. None of them moved to follow. Eventually, they walked to catch up with Cup, Jake, and Stephanie. When the camp came into view, they slowed instinctively. Whatever they had imagined, this wasn't it. A wall of black glass surrounded the outpost, not opaque, but dark enough to obscure the details within. Small modular structures sat inside the perimeter. Figures moved between them. Guards patrolled along the top of the walls as well. Above the camp hung a massive holographic projection, a red sphere with three white diagonal lines across it. Within those lines, curated images played in silent rotation, historical moments, rescues, triumphs, propaganda, effective emotional manipulation in silent video format. Every eye in the group lifted to it. Well, Cup said finally, nothing to wait for. He stepped towards the camp. Wait, Jake called. Shouldn't we get Will? A few of them glanced back instinctively, though they all knew he wouldn't have time to convince the others of anything. Hope flickered anyway. Cup turned slowly. Is he coming back? He asked calmly. Jake looked at the ground. That was answer enough. Cup nodded once. Then let's not give ourselves reasons to stall. He walked towards the gate. As they approached, Jake noticed something else. Protesters lining the outer perimeter, signs raised, voices shouting at those waiting in line. The line itself was long but moving. Each person who reached the gate either stepped inside or was turned away within moments. As Cup drew closer, a faint glow began to radiate from a few people nearby. Guards on the walls shifted. Attendants at the gates scanned the crowd. One guard pointed, another spoke into a radio. Two uniformed shapers exited the gates and approached Cup before he reached the line. The rest of the camp stopped, watching from several yards back. Cup spoke calmly with the shapers. After less than a minute, he pointed back towards the others. Aaron sighed heavily. Guess we're committed now. A few murmured agreement. They began walking forward. Will's not coming back, Jake said quietly as they moved. Everyone heard him, but none of them responded. As they approached, Cup turned and smiled broadly at them. Yeah, he called out cheerfully, as if this were all some sort of planned errand. We can definitely help out for the rest of the day.